what's up, folks? It's me, ToFFEE is back. Yeah, he did a original Minecraft. This all is 1990, 1993. It is 2021. So we go. This is Minecraft. That's not 3D. Look. It is Minecraft. What is bone? Little big bone. Here is wings. But no salad. Okay. There's no hands. Where is his suit? There's swines, there's chicken, there's a Korean cow, swan.
Is going to officially release Minecraft.
Huh? Come on, Bill. Ah, Don's on board. Wow, that's a fun. A big game. A blocker.
Oh my god, they're roaming the hall. There he is, Mr. Hop. Oh no. Oh my god, his ears. Oh my god. Whoa. What was that spin move? I knew it. You were the Shadow Clone. Now we fight.
Hey guys, Super Horror Bro Mike here, and in today's video, we take a look at the complete story of Mr. Hop's Playhouse 1 and 2. This video aims to walk you through the events of each game, explaining things that are left a little vague, and tying it all together into one easy to understand package. So sit back, relax, and let's explore the creepy world of Mr. Hop. In order to cover the story of Mr. Hop's Playhouse chronologically, we must begin with the sequel first. This is because while labelled as a sequel, Mr. Hop's Playhouse 2 is in fact a prequel to the events which occurred in the original game. We assume the role of a little girl by the name of Esther, who lives under the care of the staff at Blacklands Manor Orphanage in the year 1952. One night, Esther experiences a vivid nightmare where a shadowy toy rabbit comes to life and chases her down. Upon touching her with its clawed hand, Esther glimpses a burning body screaming for help. She awakens to find herself back in the orphanage with the other children as if nothing has happened. In the morning, Esther speaks with her friends, Molly and Isaac, explaining she has experienced this terrifying dream many times.
Did you have a bad dream again, Esther? It's not just a bad dream, Isaac. It's the same dream, over and over again. Maybe it means something? Maybe it means you're going crazy. I am not crazy, Molly.
That very morning, Beverly, one of the matrons working at the orphanage, hands over a box of donated toys to the children. Molly, Isaac and Esther claim these toys, which are made up from a tiger, panda and bunny rabbit. They each pick a name for their newfound friends.
I'm going to call mine Miss Bow. I'll call mine Mr. Stripes. What are you going to call yours, Esther? They're not coming. Mr. Hop. No!
So Esther takes ownership of the rabbit, which she decides to name Mr. Hop, and from here things take a dark and sinister turn. To begin with, the hints are subtle. While playing hide and seek, Mr. Hop falls from his perch atop a chest of drawers. It seems harmless enough. But things get weirder when one night Mr. Hop vanishes from beside Esther's bed, seemingly moving by himself. Esther's nightmares and visions while sleeping also alter. She explores the orphanage freely, as if awake, but not. An alternate reality, where she discovers 6 strange medallions, all featuring strange glyphs. A note we discover explains the origins of these hieroglyphics, which are simply known as the 6. They date back to ancient Egyptian times.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Kitty fans of all ages to our wonderful adventure cat show. Yeah! We'll start with the teleport
Yep, that's 6.
Even I can't do that many flips. Yeah, but there's something
Times where they were once worn by a pharaoh as medallions on his necklace. They possess mysterious powers and were last seen in the year 1876. After collecting these symbols, a raging fire appears, which Esther quickly extinguishes, and from where the flames once burned, emerges a terrifying demon known as the Entity. Again, the discovery of a note explains this satanic apparition. The entity is described as the personification of a powerful deity that rules over the underworld, a realm beyond the living. This force, once thought to be the guardian of hope, was banished from the above and sent to the depths of darkness for wrongdoings and corruption. It is the embodiment of evil. This description basically tells us that the entity is Satan in all but name. Both figures have this same backstory, as the devil was once an angel cast down from heaven for his sins and corruption. This demonic entity now haunts the orphanage and has its sights set directly on Esther. It isn't long before Molly goes missing, and while searching for her, Esther is attacked by the entity, this time while she is awake.
That wasn't real. It couldn't have been real.
Notice how during this attack, her missing toy, Mr. Hop, is hidden behind a box, and, even creepier, a portrait of a young girl alters and begins to cast a demonic grin. With this in mind, it means the entity is connected to both Mr. Hop and the mysterious girl in this painting. Shaken from the troubling paranormal activity she has just encountered, Esther continues her search for Molly and runs into another orphan girl named Dee, a new arrival at the orphanage who is shrouded in mystery. Dee is worried about the orphanage, claiming to hear whispers throughout its halls.
Hey Dee, have you seen Molly? Do you hear it? The whispering. The evil that roams these halls. There's something among us.
As night falls, Esther discovers not only has Molly vanished, but now her best friend Isaac too. The matrons don't seem too worried, assuming the children are simply being naughty and hiding, so Esther is sent off to bed, where her nightmare continues. The next chapter is titled The Loop. Esther an image of that mysterious child, the very same one which seems connected to the entity. But with every walk down this hallway, the portrait changes. This alteration tells the following story. The first transformation reveals a portrait of a young girl under the care of a matron, suggesting this is another child at Blacklands Manor Orphanage. We get confirmation of this later in the story when, while exploring the cellar, Esther comes across a faded version of this very painting. The second, third, and fourth portraits show us this black-haired child met a demon in the woods surrounding the orphanage and accepted a necklace from it. The demon looks exactly like the entity we looked at earlier in this video. The necklace resembling the medallion necklace referred to in the note, for which Esther collected up the hieroglyphics during her dream.
Ladies, we've got this, Katie. Marshall, Rubble, get your crane and ladder ready. We've got kids to rescue.
At this point, it is worth touching on the history of Blacklands Manor. From a note found near the beginning of the game, we are told that this building was built in the 1600s, and the land surrounding it had a dark history. The following events reveal this darkness. Portrait 6 seems to be an image of the matron punishing the little girl, presumably for venturing into the woodland unattended. Following this portrait, Esther encounters a horrifying vision. The matron from the painting bursts into the room and is torn apart by an unseen force. The matron from the painting bursts into the room and is torn apart by an unseen force. It seems as though the little girl was possessed by the entity after wearing the necklace of the six it bestowed upon her. The demon corrupted the child and gave her supernatural powers, capable of killing others with ease. Painting 7 shows us the child being questioned by authorities, and the message beside the painting seems to reflect what she said while being questioned. She deserved it, in reference to the carer she killed under the influence of the entity. Painting 8 and 9 reveal the possessed girl's tragic and cruel end at the hands of an angry mob. They burned her at the stake, necklace and all, exactly as seen in Esther's vision at the very beginning of the game. Because of these events and the clothing worn by the people in these portraits, we can deduce they occurred during the 16th century, pagan times when women would often be burned at the stake when suspected of witchcraft and demonism. While observing these paintings, Esther also comes across a selection of messages scrawled about the halls and rooms she visits. These messages lead her to free toys, which disintegrate when she interacts with them. Esther also finds messages that call her perfect and urge her to give herself over. The entity wishes to take hold of Esther just as it did with the child from the paintings all those years ago. Eventually, 2 more paintings appear. The first shows the creation of the free toys, and the second, the entity inhabiting them. It uses these dolls as portals to the human realm, while commanding the child wearing the medallion necklace to do its bidding. When Esther awakens, she hears her friends crying out for help. Sneaking about the orphanage at night reveals they are trapped within a storage closet, and Esther must find the key to free them. However, upon doing so, she makes a troubling discovery. Molly and Isaac have both been possessed by the entity.
Thank you, Esther.
I warned you, didn't I, Esther? Come with me now.
But Miss Beverly, Molly and Isaac are...
Before Esther can do anything to help them, she is whisked away by the head matron Beverly and locked in the cellar. The entity proceeds to intervene and put an end to the abusive staff member. Esther escapes and finds that the souls of her friends have been tethered to their respective toys, Isaac to Mr. Stripes and Molly to Miss Bow, and she is next.
We just want to play. Wake up, Esther.
Mr. Hop chases down Esther to try and claim her soul, but she narrowly escapes through the elevator shaft and returns to the orphanage above. Here she meets back up with Dee, who tells her of a ritual the two can perform to banish the evil that has entered the orphanage with the arrival of these toys.
Dee, what is going on? I told you, evil roams these halls, but I can make it go away and get everyone back. How? We need to do a ritual. I need 9 candles, salt, sage, and the trinket from the second floor bedroom. Hurry!
Once all the ritual items are gathered, things take an unexpected turn, as Dee reveals herself to be the entity itself.
You actually survived. Dee? You? Who are you?
It seems as though she was in fact the child from those paintings all along, the one who burned at the stake all those years ago, now reborn and seeking fresh souls for her master to claim and integrate into the killer toys. It was Dee who donated the toys which allowed the children to tether themselves to this entity. She encouraged Esther to notice the supernatural whispers the entity wanted her to hear so it may infect her mind. And it was Dee who set up the ritual to allow the entity to fully enter the human realm and to try to take control of Esther. After a struggle with Dee inside the ritual ring, Esther finds herself in an unfamiliar house.
Where am I?
Now, while this house looks unfamiliar to Esther, it looks very familiar to anyone who has played the original Mr. Hobbs Playhouse. So, with that in mind, let's take a quick look at the story of that game before returning to conclude the events of its prequel. Mr. Hobbs Playhouse followed the story of Ruby, a little girl whose grandmother was in fact Esther. The year is 2019, and Ruby was recently gifted a toy bunny rabbit from her nana named Mr. Hop. It seems Esther had held onto him for all of those years, and we'll understand why soon enough. One night, Ruby wakes from a nightmare to find herself still in one. Exploring the house, she discovers her parents are missing and seem to have been attacked and killed by Mr. Hop. Ruby now is stalked by a giant version of Mr. Hop who seeks to claim her soul. That said, we'll return to Ruby and her plight after we conclude the events of her grandmother Esther's story. So Esther is somehow exploring a house that hasn't yet been built, where her granddaughter, who hasn't yet been born, will one day reside. The calendar in the kitchen even confirms the year 2019. Mr. Hop stalks Esther as she explores the house, seeking to obtain 3 keys, each taking the colour of one of the 3 haunted toys. She discovers a note which reads as follows: "Do you not see? This is how it was written to be. To give me hope to live, 3 must have somebody to play with." The meaning of this note is vague, but seems to be a message from Dee. Currently, she is trapped, the entity having hold over her after the 2 became one following her death. In order for her to be reborn and escape its clutches, the 3 souls under its control haunting Mr. Hops and the other toys must have a victim to play with. The victim they have chosen is Esther's granddaughter Ruby, and they require her assistance to reach her. It is unclear why Ruby is the chosen one, but it's the only explanation for why this house, and the year 2019, is referenced here. After obtaining the 3 keys, Esther gains access to the kitchen where she meets the ghost of Dee once more. It almost seems as though these keys are granting the future version of the entity access to this household, as it is said a demon must receive an invitation before it can enter a host. Esther follows Dee around the house as the entity speaks through her and the following events play out.
Where are the others? Where are my friends? Tell me!
You are just like me.
I am nothing like you.
I feel your pain. Give yourself to us.
Just leave me alone!
I feel it too. Your pain, your sadness, your torment. It burns within you. You belong with me. Abandoned and lost.
You notice how Dee speaks about Esther's pain, saying they are one and the same, the entity telling her it can feel her torment. What is this pain they are referencing? It isn't ever explicitly stated, but we must assume Esther had a troubled childhood, most likely losing her parents and thus ending up in Blacklands Manor Orphanage. The note we find about Blacklands tells us that many of the children who ended up there did so as a result of losing family during wartime. This is in reference to the Second World War, which ended in 1945, 7 years before the events of this game. This would mean Esther This is in reference to the Second World War.
I don't think they meant to. They're just confused. We'll get them back home. How's it going, Rocky? I made bat wings out of a broken umbrella. Great. Okay, Chase. Ready? Drone. Hey, the bat's following it. Good job. 2 down, 1 to go. We got 'em all. Ready, Ryder?
Okay.
Come over, Chase.
War, which ended in 1945, 7 years before the events of this game. This would mean Esther lived most of her life without a real family, and likely suffered emotional and physical abuse at the hands hands of the matrons within the orphanage. We do see an example of this when Beverly locks Esther in the cellar with the rats.
Please, Miss Beverly,
This is your own fault, Esther. Maybe a night with the rats will teach you how to behave.
The entity feeds off this pain Esther holds within, and uses it to more easily infect her mind and take control of her body. But Esther is resilient and manages to withstand its insidious advances. There are two endings which follow. Both end in roughly the same way for Esther. However, for the purpose of this video, we will follow the true ending. And if you wish to see all the different possible endings, then check out this video, which I'll link at the end of the one you're watching now. Throughout the game, if we see the true ending. And if you wish to see all the different possible endings, then check out this video, which I'll link at the end of the one you're watching now. Throughout the game, if we search the orphanage thoroughly, we are able to enter 6 different medallion portals, each guarded by one of the entity's monsters. Successfully completing each Guardian's gauntlet rewards Esther with a piece of a medallion necklace, the very same one worn by Dee when she was possessed by the entity and put to death. However, Esther's willpower is far stronger than Dee's ever was, and so upon wearing the necklace, she is not claimed by the entity. Rather, she is taken down into its underworld lair, where the spirits of those it had previously claimed are imprisoned. While Dee's mind became corrupted and she used the necklace for evil deeds, Esther instead manages to harness its power very differently, using the medallions to dispel the evil around her.
You are using them wrong.
This eventually leads her to face off against the entity in its ultimate form as a gigantic three-headed monster. Esther emerges victorious, vanquishing the entity once and for all, and lays Dee's soul to rest in the process.
You cannot escape this.
What?
Upon returning to the human realm, everybody is safely returned from the underworld, the matrons and children claimed by the entity now safe and sound once more. It seems Esther really did vanquish the evil within these toys, and save the day. The 3 friends continue life peacefully, and Esther grows up and has a daughter called Jenna, who then gives birth to her granddaughter, Ruby. Everything seems pretty perfect, except it isn't. It seems while Esther managed to destroy the entity using the magical properties of the necklace, it somehow continued to lay dormant within the Mr. Hop toy. It is likely Esther held on to Mr. Hop to prevent him falling into the wrong hands, but over the years Esther's mind grew weaker as age crept in, leaving her vulnerable. Weak enough for the entity to re-emerge from hiding and take control over the unsuspecting OAP. Now under the control of the entity, Esther handed over the rabbit to its intended vessel, her granddaughter Ruby, and this is where the events of the first game pick up. By collecting tapes as Ruby, we get further insight into Esther's sudden death. These tapes tell us the following information. Esther and Ruby were very close. Ruby's parents had noticed Esther suddenly behaving strangely, staring blankly into walls for hours on end as if possessed. Esther began to lose her memory and stopped taking care of her personal hygiene. She woke the neighbors screaming in the night and was...
I think Marshall might be ready for his green belt test. Really? Me? A green belt?
Ding, 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 ding.
Should I, Ryder?
Something's trying to get in.
Let's go. Yes! Wait, go? Go where?
Something is trying to get in. Oh my god, stop!
This is better than
Dude, they opened the door.
Oh.
skills. I hope nature likes me, Sensei.
Oh, this is gonna be good. So now what?
Well, the deer does.
What is up, you guys? Realistic gaming here today.
Earn your green belt, you must pass 3 tests. Speed, strength, and balance.
Hey, we're gonna be playing It Lurks and Roblox. As you can see, it is a chapter game. So let's go ahead and begin with chapter 1. And let's see what.
Play now.
That's a big sussy.
Yeah, it'll be a way cool surprise when he gets back. Ryder here.
Hey, Ryder, my whiz-bang weather instruments show a wicked windstorm coming in from the west.
Then it's headed out to where Marshall and Sensei Yumi went.
It'd be
Oh,
wise
yes.
to warn them.
Absolutely. Thanks for the update, Captain Turbot. Stay safe. I better call Marshall on his pup tag to let him know about the storm.
tomorrow.
Ryder to Marshall,
Tomorrow.
come in.
See
What's
you
wrong?
wax.
He's not answering.
Ewa.
I better try Sensei Yumi.